Okay, so this morning God brought me right on back to Book of James, chapter 3. And it all stems from just like a little situation that like kind of happened over the course of the past couple of days. So a few days ago, I hopped online and I ordered something for um, an event that I am thinking about going to. Um, and I really want to go to the event to support and to celebrate with people that I love. But since the pandemic, like in me learning about, or starting to learn about, should I say, the whole spirit realm and spirituality and generational curses and spirits and demons and all of this stuff, I definitely took the whole me going to this event to God. And sorry, I'm like up here yawning. And like I was saying, I took this whole event and like I placed it at God's feet, and God, should I go? I know I want to go to support and to celebrate with my loved ones, but at the same time, is this within your will? Like, should I go? Because I guess the politics of everything else surrounding the event is the part that I'm like more so questioning. And so, what is it called? So anyway, I hop online, I order this product, and it was supposed to be delivered yesterday by 10 p.m. So, all day other things show up and everything, but it like this one thing did not. And so I'm like, okay. So a little bit before the deadline of when it was supposed to be delivered, which was like 10 p.m., I I sat and I like waited because I'm like, okay, well, it should be here. And so like around 10:07, I get an email saying, something in your account needs to be verified. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I go and verify what they were talking about. And basically, they were saying that the product was out of stock and they weren't sure if they were going to get any more of the product. And did I want to return my purchase, or would I like to just wait? And so I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I wanted it for this event, but I do want the product nonetheless if it's God's will. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll just, kind of wait, but let me go ahead and call customer service and see, when the new delivery date is. Because at the time, I didn't realize, yeah, like in the email, and even when I checked online, like with my order, it didn't say that it was out of stock at that time. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I call, and the customer service, she also didn't tell me there was, like they weren't sure if they were going to get any more of the product. But she did try to get me to return my purchase, and while she was still on the phone with me, go ahead and try to find a replacement, and then she could just go ahead and put it in for me right then and there. So I started trying to do that, but then I felt a little rushed. So I was like, well, is it cool if I just keep it the way that it is, because that is the product that I want. So if they do end up, getting more, I would like that product. And in the meantime, in between time, I'll go ahead and look through the website and see if I can find a proper replacement for it. So she was like, oh, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. Um, while I was on the phone with her, she did tell me that it was extremely rare that situations like that happen, because normally, if a product is sold out, it'll tell you that when you're ordering it. And if it doesn't tell you, like if it sells out before then or whatever, it'll it'll the website will send you an email letting you know, kind of like what they did with me. but letting you know that, like, oh, the product's out of stock, sorry about that, type of thing. But normally that happens before the delivery date. So she was saying that it's just extremely rare that they won't know that the product is sold out until after it was supposed to be delivered. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I listened to that, and I'm like, kind of like, yeah, that does seem a little strange. But, hey, if it's God's will, then it's God's will either way. Me having it or not having it, hey. And so, as this is happening, I noticed, some people walking by, and I'm like in a dark area, and my phone's not lit up like that. And so, I just noticed that, like, people were kind of like, their heads would like jolt over towards where I was at. And what's it called? I was sitting in my car, so, and kind of far away from the street, so it wasn't like people could hear me talking. Um and even people like riding by in cars, and people on bikes, and like, just, it was a lot of traffic, more traffic than normal, I would say. But everybody kind of did this whole head turn type of thing over towards my way, and, like, kind of trying to look and see something. And so I thought that was kind of strange, but it did remind me of the spiritual warfare that I was going through months ago. Yeah, where it was like, yeah, you could just kind of see the same personality, same spirit, like, kind of hopping through different people, like, wherever you go, type of thing. So that was definitely happening again. So I was like, oh, okay, that's what's up. So clearly this has something to do with, like, the spiritual realm, like, kind of interfering and stuff like that. But everything is God's will at the same time. And I did ask God and place even me buying this, like, purchasing this at God's feet, like, should I get this or should I not? And, like, is it for me and all of that stuff. So, um, yeah, I kind of just like start chuckling to myself, because it's like, wow, okay, well, I guess, I guess there's like some interference here. So I guess there's that. Like, I guess it's not God's will. And actually, I hadn't come up with the whole "it's not God's will" part yet. And so I was just like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And hop off the phone with the lady, and this morning I get up and I go to the store, and right outside of the store they're like playing a sermon, which, that is extremely rare, like, where I'm from. And I like it shocked me, but it was a good shock. It was refreshing. And so when I go in the store, I was like, oh, wow, you guys are playing a sermon outside of the store. She was like, oh, yeah, yeah, like, we all need it. And I was like, you're so right about that. Like, I'm digging it and stuff like that. And so we have a cool little conversation. And when I came out of the store, the sermon said something about James. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so that put James back in my mind. And then I went ahead and downloaded an audio Bible. And I took it to James, and I just went to 3. And so I started listening to it, and it was just the confirmation and the reminder of, yeah, it's like, if it's God's will, let it be done. And if it's not, sorry about that. And if it's not, then, it's just not God's will. And to not let it shake you if it happens to not be God's will. And so, as I'm like downloading the audio Bible, I, like, start clicking on a couple videos and stuff like that on YouTube. And, like, I noticed that the people that I was watching kind of had the same product that I was trying to buy. All right. And so I start chuckling, because it's just like, oh, okay. So Like, it just seems like in the spiritual realm, somebody or some spirit is trying to mess with me and make me feel a way about it. But fortunately for me, I took it to God, and if it's God's will for me to get it, then I'll get it. And if it's not God's will, then, hey, I just won't have it. And so I was already equipped with, I guess you could go ahead and say, the armor of God in the situation to where it didn't bother me at all. But I could see how the enemy was trying to place little things here and there to rub me the wrong way and have me feel away. And I understand how that part works because I mean, I've fallen a victim to it before, but it was just great to be on this side of it and to see, like, almost step by step, how me putting the full armor of God on and how me taking and placing everything at God's feet, and me actually saying and meaning, if it's God's will, then it shall be, and if not, then it just is what it is. How that protected me from feeling away about all the little stuff that the enemy was trying to do to get me to feel away. So, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to go ahead and share that with you guys. Maybe somebody can learn something from it or get something from it, or maybe this is like a confirmation for somebody. But yeah, I mean, no matter how bad you want something, think something makes sense, something seems to fit, if it and then if it works out or if it doesn't work out, like, don't let it get to you. Try to brush it off and just take those feelings to God. If you do end up feeling a way about something, take it to God and just brush it off. Brush it off, because if something falls through, it just wasn't meant to be. Still need to, like, get all angry or this, that, and the third about it, because it's really not that serious. It's not. And to be honest, it just wasn't in God's will. So, all right. I hope this helps somebody. And even if it doesn't, or nobody listens to it or whatever, I will have it documented so then I can listen to it at a later date. And maybe it may help me in another situation. Have a nice day, everybody, and stay blessed.